Looking at our new adverbs and storytelling vocabulary in order to help us determine which tense we're using when we're telling stories. So first of all, remember that the imparfait is used for habitual actions, descriptions, or actions that get interrupted, so our scenery and our narrator. And the passé composé is used for one-time events or main storyline events, / actions that interrupt something else. Okay, so the actors who are doing the things. When we apply these definitions to our adverbs and storytelling phrases that we've been talking about in class the last 2 days, so we can see that some of these phrases are going to force us to use the imparfait. So for example, we had the adverb souvent, meaning often. If it's something you do often, then by definition it's a habit, which falls into the imparfait. Some phrases are going to force the passé composé in the same sort of way. So for example, the phrase à ce moment-là, at that moment, is pointing out a very specific main storyline, probably one-time action. All of those are things which force us to use the passé composé. However, be aware that some phrases could go either way. So for example, heureusement, to say fortunately, or literally happily, we could use that in, for example, a description. We could use that as a habit, or we could be using that to say that we were happy or fortunate to have a specific one-time event happen. So not all of them are going to force a particular tense. We have to think about it in terms of context and those initial definitions. So for example, if I was saying je jouais souvent au bille, I have to use the imparfait here because of souvent. Or à ce moment-là, je suis tombé. I have to use the passé composé here because of the à ce moment-là. Okay. So souvent, something I did often, so I habitually played. À ce moment-là, at that moment then. Okay, something that happened in my story, possibly an interruption. Okay, I fell. But if we look at heureusement, I can use this either direction. Okay, so for example, a sentence like heureusement, j'étais sûr. So fortunately, I was safe, I was secure. So sûr is an adjective, okay, describing my state of being, that I was safe. So in this case, because it's a description, I'm going to use heureusement to prompt the imparfait. However, if I'm saying that heureusement something happened, okay, so happily or fortunately something happened, like heureusement j'ai fini le travail. Okay, so finally, happily, or not finally, fortunately, happily, I finished the work. This is still a specific storyline, potentially one-time event, so I can use it with the passé composé. So for questions 1 and 2, so looking at the following adverbs / phrases that we talked about in class, do you think that they would require the imparfait? Would they require the passé composé? Or do you think they could take either one? Okay, so numéro 1, finalement. Would finalement require the imparfait, the passé composé, or either? Okay, and then how about alors que? Would alors que force?
Custodian Ed, will you please go to the stage? Custodian Ed, report to the stage, please.
Force either tense, or would it still leave it open? All right, so questions 3, 4, and 5. Let's see how well we can use this in the wild, for lack of a better phrase. Okay, so question 3, write a sentence, any sentence, with an adverb or a phrase that forces the imparfait. Okay, so this can be one of the ones that we've talked about in class over the last 2 days, or it can be one that you just happen to know from a previous unit, from a reading. Maybe you looked it up online because you thought it was a good idea. Okay. As long as it's an adverb or a phrase that forces the imparfait, it'll count for number 3. We're going to do the exact same thing at number 4, but with one that forces the passé composé. And then 5, write a sentence with an adverb or storytelling phrase that could go to the imparfait or the passé composé. So obviously your sentence will use one of those 2 choices, but it's not the adverb or the phrase that's dictating which one you use.